Val, nice to have you on board again.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, talk about just one of the programs starting off.
Okay. Well, folks hear of Hearts of Hope, and beautiful name for such a very, very sticky issue that we have to tackle: sexual abuse.
Right, right.
But Hearts of Hope is comprised of three different agencies, centers,
Okay,
housed under one roof.
okay,
We have SANE, which stands for Sexual Assault Nurse Examiners.
okay.
And just to provide a little levity in the day, we always say the sane will go insane with the type of cases that they deal with.
So in other words, the inmates are running the institution. I can understand that.
So we provide the sexual assault nurse examiners
Okay,
at all of the Lafayette area hospitals, as well as one of the hospitals in St. Martin Hospital.
okay,
And basically, anytime there is a sexual abuse incident that occurs and the victim goes to the hospital, we provide that highly skilled, highly trained nurse to go there and collect that forensic evidence. Because when a person is attacked, their body is science. Their body has DNA on it, has evidence on it. And they need a professional who's trained in that capacity to gather sufficient evidence that is needed when that case is brought to trial.
okay.
For children, they have a window of up to only 72 hours
Okay.
when the incident occurs. For adults, they have a little bit longer time. That's because the body doesn't heal as fast as children do.
Right.
They have up to 96 hours. And so we provide those nurses, we have them trained, we have them licensed, and they go to the hospitals and meet the victim there. We are looking to expand because we serve as 8 parishes. That's St. Mary, that's St. Martin, that's Lafayette, Acadia, Iberia, Vermilion.
Well, the kid in the area.
Yeah, pretty much your
Yeah.
whole Acadiana area. We are looking to expand that. But right now, our state is in dire straits monetarily.
Yes.
So we're still optimistic about it because this is something that is not just happening in Lafayette and in St. Martin Parish. This is happening in Iberia. This is happening in Acadia. A lot of our rural areas need that accessibility. A lot of the people in those rural communities are thirsty for services to be extended to
I
them.
would think that the people in the rural areas, not actually in the city, feel more complacent. Saying it's
Yes,
not going to happen
they
to
do.
us because we're in the country.
Right,
We have to be in the city to be attacked.
right.
You know, well, which you can go anywhere and have this.
In their own home.
Yes.
Lots of these incidents happen in a person's home, in their own comfort space. When you look at these children, when we talk to our children, from a little child, we always say stranger danger.
Right.
Don't
Right.
talk to strangers. But in sexual abuse cases, it's not the stranger that is violating children. It's the person who the child knows and trusts, or the parents trust,
Okay.
that is around the kids. So I always say this when I'm going into the schools, good, we know about stranger danger, but we have to be careful about the people who mom and dad leave us in care of.
Right. Right.
So that's that department, the SANE department. CAC is Children's Advocacy Center. In this center, that is where our law enforcement and our social
I'll tell you,
workers
we'll
meet.
have to go back with Saint a little bit. In contacting them, um, you get majority of your contacts through what resource? Through what? Through the schools. I mean,
With these SANE,
if you're saying one a day coming to you
mm-hmm,
through different programs, I mean, that's pretty horrible.
it is.
So I mean, as long as you let the people know that there are steps out there, how do they contact you? And who do they go to?
Good question. If something has happened, let's say, child tells mom that someone has touched them. Well, mom would call social services or call law enforcement. Mom can call us, but the report has to go through one of those two channels in order for us to provide the services. If the case is a closed case, let's say this child is now an adult,
Okay.
and this child is suffering from some traumatic relapses.
Okay.
That adult can call us and we can provide them counseling services. And that would be through the center that I am primarily housed, which is Sexual Abuse Response Center. That is where we work on prevention and counseling.
Well, I'll tell you what, we can stop right here in this first segment, and we'll come back in a couple of seconds. We're back with Miss Val Senegal, and hopefully she will pick up where we left off in the last segment. So, Miss Val, it's on you, girl.
So, yes, Sexual Abuse Response Center, that's where we focus on counseling and prevention services. But when a case is new, it is fresh, it is ongoing, that's where our CAC, Children's Advocacy Center, has to house that case, because that's when we provide the forensic interviewers who sit in the room and ask those questions that is needed when this case goes to trial. That is where the child who is in that court process sees a counselor, a licensed clinical social worker, to help that child heal from that traumatic experience.
Well, that's good. Now, on to this next program that you mentioned before I stopped you so abruptly. What's about this next program that you guys offer?
Well, in the prevention world that I live in, that I try to stay in as a mother of three, it can be so detrimental to you.
Detrimental?
Oh yes, because when you see a child walking through that center, and you know something's happened when you look at a kid's face, it intensifies what I do in preventing this. Because if I can reach so many kids, if I can reach 100 kids, in my mind, I feel like that's 100 children that I won't see walking through the doors. And that's why I'm committed to this fight. When you see these children coming through the center with a parent or with law enforcement, sometimes they're alone in this with just a social worker walking through the doors, because it's happening in the home, maybe by a parent or a step parent. Your heart really breaks for that kid. Your day is not great like you thought it was when you drank that coffee and ate your breakfast and you thought, hey, I'm going to work and today's going to be a good day.
Yeah.
Well, as humans, if you have a heart, once you see that, your day is gone. So I try my best to stay in my prevention world and work on programs to end these feelings that we all have in this profession, to not see these children walk through the doors. So we're working on a big campaign right now, a social change campaign.
It seems as if that you're working on the individual, because in your position, you really could develop a cold heart.
You can.
Just in order to survive.
Right.
Okay, just like I find nurses and doctors, I mean, they're really in a bad situation. They deal with it every day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you may catch the back end of it, but I guess to some degree, these children or adults, whatever, I guess you can say that they have also PTSD as well.
That's right. It's true. We have to have mental health days for ourselves in this capacity.
Right. And this, whatever's going to take you guys to get through it, you know, it seemed like you found an answer how you can go through it. My daughter's a nurse, and in the beginning years of her nursing career, she was always sympathetic towards the patient. Mm-hmm. And finally she said, I can't do it anymore. I got to step back and just go in and act as a professional. And that's why I get angry sometimes when doctors come in and they just walk right out, is treat you like, well, to be honest with you, you don't know what that doctor's going through or that nurse is going through.
That is true.
You know, and even what you guys go through, you see the bad side, mm-hmm. day in and day out.
Right.
You know, and these programs that you guys offer.
It's important to protect yourself from what we call compassion fatigue.
Compassion fatigue, okay.
Compassion fatigue.
I gotta tell it to my daughter.
Yes, and that's what she was going through. I can tell you, you have to find some type of protective factors to keep
Okay.
you vital in your job, in your capacity. And I have been pouring myself into a social change campaign that we have launched recently with the help of law enforcement, particularly Lafayette Police and Scott Police,
Okay.
to address a very contemporary sexual abuse issue, sexting.
Sexting.
Sexting
Okay.
is a problem we have that is facing our teenagers, a lot of our teenagers. When you look around, if you go to a library, if you go to the park, if you go to the mall, you will find a child with a cell phone in their hand. You
Right.
will find them with cell phones more than you find them with books.
Right.
Parents are giving children cell phones as early as age 6 now.
6.
Yes.
What do they expect to do with it?
You know, we have this electronic world that we're in now, and
The answer to everything.
that's what they feel. Me particularly, my personal beliefs, if that child is not a teenager and that child is not going other places socially, they really don't need a cell
Right.
phone for protection.
Right.
And a 6-year-old is not going anywhere outside of the home, hopefully, without their parent. But that's what we live in. And what we have facing us is children having the whole world at their hands
Right.
and getting into a lot of trouble. A lot of young girls, because we're living in the Kim Kardashian era where it's
Well,
nudity.
I'll tell you what, this is going to end our second segment, and we'll come back in a couple minutes and pick up where we left off. We're back with Ms. Val Senegal, the education coordinator, and let's pick up where we left off.
We are living in the era where nudity online is just,
Everyday occurrence.
yes, it is. And it's one that law enforcement is really tired of seeing, hearing, and having to be assigned to those particular cases. Judges as well in this area.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't want to change the subject, but there's a little story I want to tell you. When I was involved in trying to get a private investigator's license, they had a gentleman came down to our class from Washington, D.C. He was a professional hacker. He showed us within 1 minute he can get in 13 different computers around Acadiana. No problem, just instant. Okay. He says what they would go in with a program, put a program on that person's computer if they have enough space. They would put pornography on it. And that person don't even know anything about it. Doesn't even show up. So every time I hear someone find somebody, we found these pictures on this program, my question always go back, was he being used? But in the end, he's gonna get the consequences. So I have kind of mixed emotions about that, but I can understand there's a lot of nudity out there.
And we educate the kids. You know, that's where the prevention hat comes in at working with these kids through the curricula that we offer to be mindful of who they're friending online through a lot of these social media websites.
don't know who
They
they
don't know. Anyone can set up a fake profile
Right.
and say that they're a 16-year-old kid at Lafayette High trying to communicate with another kid who's at Acadia. And we just try to educate parents too that they need to be mindful of who their children are conversing with online.
Right.
Check their social media profiles. Who are they talking to? What are they posting? We have a big issue with our children victimizing their peers at school,
Okay, yeah.
when they're out and about in their social environments, they're victimizing each other. You have young girls victimizing themselves, sending nude, pornographic images to a boyfriend. Boyfriend breaks up, now he's sending it to all of his friends. That's an issue that's growing rampant amongst our college and our high school and middle school campuses. And we're trying to change that, the culture of this, by launching this social change campaign. It's called hashtag Now Matters Later. Because on social media, people communicate with the use of hashtags. So through the hashtag Now Matters Later, we're trying to raise awareness that sexual abuse online is happening. Be mindful of your behavior online. Be mindful of your friends' behavior. Educate them on the Louisiana laws, because a lot of times parents and teens don't know that there is a Louisiana law for sexting and there's a law for cyberbullying.
Oh, I know about the cyberbullying. I wasn't aware of this.
There is. And you'll have an incident occur at a school. Well, law enforcement and principal will contact the parent. They will confiscate that $500 and $600 phone that dad and mom have purchased for the child. And they're upset because this $500 item is being confiscated. And what are you talking about, sexting? That's just a kid. Kids behave that way. You know, kids will be kids. You hear it all the time. But in Louisiana, the age of culpability is 10. So if
Culpability is 10.
10. So if that child is doing something that is against the law, then with all rights, that item can be confiscated. If you go rob a bank with the gun, they're going to take the gun.
Another case where a young lady, a young 14, 15-year-old girl that I ran across, that got involved with her friends. Come to find out her friends was texting and sexting. And we found out about it because she went to the parent. And the parent told us about it and everything else. Come to find out it wasn't a child. It was a guy out of Texas.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So you really have to be careful about who you get in contact with.
You do.
So as far as, I know I cut you off. You wanted to put something else about another program, the last program you said you wanted?
The social change campaign.
Okay.
Yeah. It's fairly new. It is going to be administered in middle schools and high schools to educate both children and the parents about safety when they're online, when they're communicating on social media. Snapchat is one of these social media apps that these kids are using to victimize each other, because they'll send something and then they can set a timer on it where after 10, 30 seconds, it deletes. And in the child's mind, they think that there'll be no trace of it.
Right.
That's not the reality, because there's a server and police can get that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to say that this ends our third segment
That's-
and the show, and hopefully we'll be back again with her in the future. So, Val, thank you.
Thank you. And hashtag Now Matters Later, right?
All right. Bye-bye. Catch you later.